Shall you rise or fall, Mr. Okkotsu? I suppose that is the question. What's up, guys? I'm Okkotsu, and here we are to do a breakdown / discussion on whether or not Yuta, I don't know, insert adjective here, should survive the battle with Ryoma and Sukuna or not, or should he be added to the body count? The tolls, the many individuals who were destined to fall one after another, all in the effort, all in the goal of slaying the strongest sorcerer, not just in history, but of all time, Ryoma Sukuna. Or should he just live in like a happy life? Maybe like pseudo happy? Depends on what body he ends up in. But we have so much to talk about in so precious little time. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Heading me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Yuta's life hangs in the balance. I don't think that's like too controversial a statement to make nowadays. Like, obviously, with the conditions that were revealed in 261, they don't even fully understand how things really gonna go. Whether it's gonna be the king of curses that puts Yuta in the ground, or the lack of his technique being able to maintain activation being put in the ground, or Kenjaku's technique putting him in the ground. There are like 15 different ways that Yuta Okkotsu could end up in the ground. But, of course, you know, like every single character in JJK, the question of whether or not they should be put in the ground is being raised, considering, you know, he's currently and by I mean getting by the King of Curses until, you know, he settled with that juicy, glorious, beautiful play here with this hollow perp. There's the question, the real question, the honest question on whether or not he should live, and what living really means for Yuta Okkotsu at this point. Because there are levels of living, and I know that sounds absolutely insane, but welcome to fiction where levels of living do exist. And honestly, even in real life, there are levels of living. But first things first, should Yuta Okkotsu perish? I think this goes into like a general idea of, do you think Sukuna's taken away enough yet? I made a video talking about that a while back, whether or not he actually got too many people so far. And while at first I was kind of in the camp that he did, I now agree with most people. He kind of has it up to this point. Well, don't get me wrong, Satoru Gojo's a very, very, very big, heavy hitter of a name. And Kashimo Hajime will never live it down. And Higuruma Hiromi was pretty neat. And who else? Choso? I mean, like, I like Choso. I think Choso's neat. I think he's cool. I think he's a fun guy. But, like, that's it. That's 4 bodies, at least 4 named bodies. Obviously, he got, like, hundreds of thousands of people in Shibuya. Who cares? Gosh darn, they don't have names. What does that phrase go? What? Like, a million ends is a statistic, 1 end is a tragedy. Bada bing, bada boom. You know what I'm talking about? So, like, we're realistically only 4 characters down. Kusakabe, alive. Ino, alive. Laru, alive. Mikkel, alive. Maki, questionable, alive. Miwa, alive. Thing, alive. Inumaki, alive. We have 8 separate characters, and I didn't even talk about Todo or Yuji yet. I'm pretty sure I'm still missing some. So, ultimately, Sukuna, while being unbelievably almighty and definitely having taken a big, hefty, defty, thrifty chunk of numbers off the table, especially in terms of impact and heavy hitter status, well, I mean, like, I'd say Gojo Satoru was beyond, like, a heavy hitter. He was the heavy hitter. But still, he's definitely taken some big impacts off the table, some big pieces. If we were talking, like, chess terms, he's taken, how do I put this? The queen in Satoru Gojo. Then it really depends on how you want to scale Kashimo Hajime. I think the lowest you can put him is like a bishop. Then, just due to the specialty of Higuruma's abilities, I call him like a knight just because of the weird way and motions he had to do. And Choso, a pawn. No offense to Choso. I know this sounds so great, but Choso, no offense, bro, but pawn. And who am I missing? There's the 4th one. It was Gojo, Choso, Higuruma, and Kashimo. So, a queen, a knight, a bishop, and a pawn. So, technically, Sukuna mad up right now. Because admittedly, while he's literally just like the king, and the queen, and the knight, and the rook, and the pawn all fused together. Oh, that's what you can put Kashimo at. I'd put Kashimo at a rook. I'd put let's go in order. Gojo's a queen in chess, then Kashimo as a rook, then Higuruma as a knight, and then Choso as a pawn. Just in that descending order. But with that being the case, that's nice, but it ain't too much, really. And being completely honest, except for the many, and I mean many, I know y'all are out there. I've seen y'all in my comment sections. I've seen y'all in other comment sections. Y'all are there. Don't trust me. I'm not downplaying y'all's existence. Other than the Choso fans and the Gojo fans, I mean, like, Higuruma and Kashimo are cool, but... So really, Sukuna has 2 big Giga Gargantuan dubs to his name. And the dubs are neat. But tell me that Yuta Okkotsu, the main character of the original series, wouldn't be a crazy dub to put on his docket. Like, it wouldn't be some next level stuff to smack on his record. Honestly, in my opinion, that's some top tier clout right there. That's some top tier next level crazy stuff right there. So, Yuta Okkotsu perishing for Sukuna's agenda? It's not necessary. Once again, I don't think there's anyone. There are some. There are some who are still holding out. And hey, I give credit to all the Gojo fans out there. I'm a Gojo fan still. There's a reason, if you'll notice, if I were to hypothetically put these 2 boxes next to each other, the Sukuna box is about this big, and the Gojo box is about this big. Look at the size. Look at the size difference. If you can't tell, I'm something of a Gojo fan myself, you know. But with that being the case, I don't think anyone needs to be convinced that Ryomen Sukuna is the strongest character in the verse that currently exists that we know of. The only character who's remotely giving us consistent questions on whether or not this big old crazy forearm guy will be stronger than is a character that doesn't even exist yet, and that's Merger Tengen. Which is still a plot device that I'm still 50-50 on even activating just because of the context required for it. So, like, Sukuna is the strongest. So I'm not saying he needs to off Yuta for, like, proving his power. He doesn't. He been proved that. The one he beat Satoru Gojo, number 2 in the verse, and then the gap is whoop. Yeah, he already proved his raw power. But just for Sukuna's impact level, a big heavy hitter name like Yuta Okkotsu would go crazy. Especially considering then he'd basically have 3 heavy hitters. 3 Slobanakas. Obviously you could use like Toto, but still, I think a lot of people just would care about Yuta more. Yuta's a real popular character. Like a real popular. He's a popular character to the point where, as a guy who constantly speaks against him, who constantly has people saying, oh, Pencil Man, you're a Yuta hater, I like Yuta. I think he's neat. I think he definitely he got done real dirty. Like, I still think his nerf is absolutely crazy. Retroactively, I understand his nerf. Retroactively, his nerf makes perfect sense. Because if you didn't have the nerf, we wouldn't have the current stakes right now. But still, as much as I love the guy, I know for a fact, especially considering Gege recently made a statement about talking about how they don't like to slaughter characters unless they know it'll get a big emotional reaction. Yuta Okkotsu falling? I think there's the only other living character now that could fall to get a reaction out of the fan base, even fractionally proportional to the level that Gojo Satoru got out of the fan base from both sides, is Yuta. Unless, I don't know, Sukuna randomly just executes Yuji, but even then, Yuji isn't really liked by most of the fan base. I don't know, I keep seeing Yuji switch-ups every day. Sometimes he's everyone's favorite main character, sometimes he's garbage. But Yuta's just been consistently riding high, and I don't blame him. The man's basically had no L's until he fought the strongest guy in the verse. And even then, he ended up flipping that strongest guy in the verse, cutting it in half, into a play for Maki. So, like, realistically, Yuta's taken no real, genuine, hefty L's. And the fan base loves him for that. And thusly, it'd be real sad, real devious if this man were to be executed. And honestly, once again, we low-key gotta shove Big Bro out the way. Because you gotta remember, I made a video just talking about this. I ran a poll on it. Well, there are definitely people, and I do agree, a lot of people are like, Pencilman, 1, you need to read more. And then yes, I do. I've never said I was well-studied. I've somewhat studied, but like, studied is a lie. I've read a couple things. I'm not super in-depth on manga, regular literature, or anything. Like I keep saying, I got degrees, not in literature. So I'm super understudied, but even still, I do agree with the common consensus that admittedly I put out there. The idea that Yuji is necessary to be the one to at least land the final blow on Sukuna. I obviously don't believe that Sukuna and Yuji are going to have a big bad 1v1 where Sukuna's at full power and Yuji's at full power and Yuji's going to beat him and overcome him and surpass him and become the strongest sorcerer ever. No! I don't believe that. But I do think, ultimately, yeah, it's Yuji's place to do it. So, while it's neat, nice, and funny, haha funny, that Yuji got one-tapped and knocked away for Goto to come out the clutch and domain clash with them and then have a little fighty fight. Yuta, there's only one of two ways this man gets out of here. He either wins and kill steals from Yuji, or B, he falls. So, like, we kind of gotta make him fall, right? Like, for all intents and purposes, we gotta at least get rid of Goto. Like, whatever that means. If it's Goto literally just collapsing at the end of the 5 minutes, the technique ceases, and they just... Or it's, I don't know, a lot of people are theorizing recently. I saw this, I swear I saw it, like, in one TikTok slideshow. And then I've seen it a whole lot more. A lot of people are now theorizing that Kenjaku is much less the brain and more so the technique. Like, legitimately just because of the difficulties of what it would be if he needed to do a body transfer and he had no one he could trust to actually do the body transfer. A lot of people just can't envision the brain itself hopping from body to body. And thusly, he's actually the technique. So maybe 5 minutes are up, Kenny takes over, or 5 minutes are up, Rika dissipates, and thus Yuta's connection to the technique dissipates, and then he falls, or he gets sliced in half. Moving Goto out the way is kind of necessary for a certain Yuji Itadori to come out the clutch and start cooking even remotely. It's not a want, it's a need at this point. Not just by me, but by a lot of the community. And once again, I don't want to say this, it's final blow territory. I'm not saying that you're just going to beat Sukuna in a 1v1 fairly. There ain't no such thing as fair. This is Jujutsu Kaisen, come on now. But still, with that being the case, we have Yuta kind of needing to get out of the way for Yuji Itadori. Yuta kind of needed to not necessarily get out the way, but kind of, fall to Sukuna to up Sukuna's body count, especially major, because I would say Yuta Okkotsu, if you don't want to make Kashimo a rook, right? Let's say, going back to the chess analogy, if you want to list out pieces and you were to give another piece to Sukuna, you could lower Kashimo down to a bishop, keep Higuruma as a knight, keep Choso as a pawn, keep Gojo as a queen, and then make Yuta the rook. I'm fine with that. And then, once again, sorry, funnily enough, not very good at chess, but I love chess analogies. Then you could say Sukuna has one of each major piece. Everything except the king. And of course the king in reference would be the prince, Yuji Itadori. So, with that being the case, you fill in all the spots. You get 5 characters, all of varying relevance, 2 of extreme major relevance, the main character of the original series on Sukuna's rap sheet, and what a lot of people would like to joke about, and sometimes I've seen be very seriously about, which kind of concerns me. Are we reading the same manga? Say that the main character of this series, even though Gojo Satoru isn't, he's a major side character. He may have had an arc named after him, but that does not mean he's the main character. But still, you put that on his rap sheet, and Sukuna's going down in history. How many antags are known for slaughtering the main character of the prequel series? How many main antags are even known for interacting with the main protag of their prequel series? I'm trying to think. Off the top of my dome piece, I haven't read that many sequels. That's like I'm not well set. But people drop references. I don't think any boys just blinking out. I have one idea. But does he even count? He never really, I love insert spoiler here, but I'm not sure he really counts as, the main character of that series. I talked about it on the channel before, but, I find people still get jump scared when I mention this in, just casual conversation, so I won't say the series I'm talking about, but there is one series off the top of my head that I have consumed that in a sequel series, a main character interacted with the main antagonist and did fall. A lot of people didn't like it, if you could take a hazard of a guess what that was. But, with that being I guess Star Wars, too. I feel like that isn't a spoiler. But then again, what's that? Does that really count? I guess. Yeah, I guess. But that's weird. But still, with that being the case, there are reasons on both levels for Yuji's character and Sukuna's character to get rid of Yuta. But I'm really focused on external characters and, external narrative writing and external purposes. But the question is, does Yuta's story necessarily need to end in death? Gojo Satoru, as much as I love the guy, he's kind of been walking towards it for a while now. I love Gojo. I do. But, a lot of his story is steeped in death and loss and winning battles but losing wars. A lot of Gojo's character, especially upon a reread of the manga, if you look for it, you'll see there's a lot of death around that character. And thusly, it makes his grand conclusion in 236, or what some would say is not a grand conclusion, make a lot of sense in retrospect. So, I can see that. And in a roundabout way, I can also see Yuta Okkotsu's story ending in death because he himself is heavily steeped in it. Obviously, if you don't remember, Yuta's main power set and main external source of abilities and storage and everything comes from death. He was a boy so heavily steeped in it that for years he thought he was cursed, and of course he was, but it's something that he brought about because of death. So Yuta Okkotsu ending his life, or having his life ended by the King of Curses, it kind of does fit into his narrative in one way. However, on the flip side, while Yuta's beginnings are heavily steeped in death, and while he does slaughter Geto at the end of JJK 0, notably, he doesn't actually. Gojo, once again feeding into the whole Gojo being deeply steeped in death thing, is the one heavily steeped in death. He's the one who executes Geto. Yuta just beats him. Same way that it isn't Yuta, who, okay, admittedly, he slaughtered Druve and like 7 other people. But still, Yuta didn't slaughter Ryu and Uro, he beat them. He did slaughter Kuro, though, but Kuro was a curse. So, curses don't have rights. That sounds so bad. But, I mean, do they? Do curses pay taxes? But with that being the case, Yuta is a character who's always gotten real close to death, whether it be he himself or other people, and skirted around it. It's just been a thing. Heck, even his battle against Sukuna is another case of this man just barely swerving away from death. He got real close. The man was literally bisected. He was hit with the same thing. Well, not the same thing, because I don't think it was a world cutting slash. I think it was a fully chant dismantle. But still, the man got bisected and then dropped his own barrier. Actively getting bisected wasn't enough for him to shatter his barrier. No, he did that himself in order to Maki to have the cleanest in the entire series. A nice little sneak in and slide into the heart stabby stab. Yuta's about avoiding death. Acknowledging it, appreciating it, using it for what it's worth, but ultimately not actively seeking it, and rather dodging it. But the question is now, okay, Pencil Man, you have a main character who needs the previous main character to get out the way. You have a main villain who needs more heavy hitters added to his rap sheet, or else we're going to look back on it after a while and be like, hey, he got Gojo and randoms. And then the Choso fans are going to be like, hey, and then we're going to say he's got Gojo, Choso, and randoms. But now, Yuta being one character who's skirted around death a whole bunch, now he gets to skirt around it. How will he even do that? A couple ways. Number one, we don't know. That's the thing that 261 is all about. They don't actually understand what's going to happen with Yuta. As Mei says, here's my best guess. 1, if Kenjaku's curse technique functions constantly or at regular intervals, you'll be unable to sustain your body or soul and you'll die. 2, if the curse technique functions irregularly, you won't die right away, but you'll die eventually. 3, if the curse technique activates only once, then you'll be able to use the Limitless even after 5 minutes. Another possibility is that after changing bodies, you'll lose your curse technique, and you'll be forced to live in Gojo's body. They have no clue, because they don't know much about Kenny. Just like we don't know much about Kenny. Just like we don't know much about Kenny's technique. Yuta has numerous ways to skirt around the dying in 5 minutes thing. Sure, there may be sacrifices required for him to live, but once again, what is Yuta a character all about? Dancing around death. And having other characters take the fall for it. Just like Ryu took the fall, just like Geto took the fall, and just like all the way back in the beginning, Rika herself took a fall. It wasn't a fall, it was getting hit by a car, but still, the point still stands. And with that being the case, there's the possibility that ultimately Yuta Okkotsu lives on within Gojo Satoru. Now the new strongest of the modern day, finally given a body that'll help him take care of that cursed energy control, and finally help him be the great guardian he always wanted to be. Sure, it'd be twisted, and it'd be a very low standard of living, because he left his body behind, and essentially, he would never be able to look at his friends the same way again. Sure, he'd be him, as we see all the way back in 261. Yeah, that's not Gojo Satoru, that is Yuta Okkotsu. It doesn't matter. You take one look at the, 17-year-old boy, and then you put him into the body of, now a 29-year-old man? It's not the same. His dynamics would never be the same. His existence would never be the same. Yuta Okkotsu would live, but it wouldn't be a happy life. He would have lost everything that made him Yuta Okkotsu, down to his abilities, down to his own body, heck, his soul, as we know, since the body and the soul are somewhat intertwined, his soul would be fundamentally changed, overridden, somewhat deleted. And that would still, in a way, be a way of acknowledging, appreciating, and accepting death, as in the death of his original body, but still skirting around it. He'd still be alive. And that's a sad case, a dark case, a mean, despicable, and diabolical case. But it's a case where you kind of get the best of both worlds. Yeah, Yuta's dead, but he's not really dead. Yuta Okkotsu is. But the body of Satoru Gojo and the mind of Yuta Okkotsu, oh no, they're merged. So, there's that idea. The other idea is that, well, you know, you could just, like, attempt to put the brain back. But I don't think that would. Here's the thing, right? Yuta's body is still active. It's still alive, relatively speaking, because Rika's still there. And Rika's tied to Yuta's body. And Rika's maintenance is what allows Kenjaku's technique, and by proxy the copy technique, to be running. So, like, if they got real fancy with it, they could try and slide his brain back. But, like, I'm just not sure. Once again, we have no idea about how Kenny's technique works. We have no idea how the inverse brain surgery would work. We don't know if they would have to reach in there and, like, sever the brainstem. Because presumably, with Kenny and his technique involving brain-body fusion, his brainstem is likely now connected to Gojo's brainstem. And that's not to talk about all the other things that connect your body and brain to your skull and flesh. So a quick impromptu surgery would kind of be crazy and roundabout. And ultimately, I do think it's a little bit wacky, but obviously getting Yuta back to his original body would be the happiest ending for the character. Because, like, as much as he likes Gojo, as much as he likes being the defense, as much as he likes helping people, I bet he'd also kind of like a normal life with his friends. Which he couldn't do if he was built like Gojo. I just don't think that's on the table for Broski. But with that also being the case, there's the idea of Yuta just, you know, becoming Rika. This is a weird one that I've seen floating around, but notably, it's a big point made in Sendai Colony that Rika, or at least the Rika we know, is a husk. The remnants of Rika Orimoto's will that live on inside this husk are what tie it to Yuta's body, and obviously the fact that the curse was tied to Yuta initially. But once again, Rika sort of acts as the intermediary, the storage point, the data point, an empty vessel for all intents and purposes. And I've seen some people now theorizing that ultimately Rika could kind of just be the resting place for Yuta's soul. He wouldn't be alive in Gojo, he wouldn't be alive in his own body, but he'd be alive in there. Sort of trapped in an eternal purgatory. As long as his body's still maintained, then that vessel will still be maintained. Or worse, if his soul gets trapped in there, then he's kind of just stuck, regardless of his body's state. That's like the darkest ending, though. Like, I know you're wondering, like, Pencilman, is that really the darkest ending? The darkest ending is Yuta dead. Kinda! But that's also the simplest one. That's the thing. I feel like you can have a bit of both. And that's always what I like. I like when you can have a mixture, a little salt-based sprinkle of everything. Don't get me wrong. Love Yuta. Wouldn't mind him getting executed. I'm not saying I wouldn't bat an eye, but like I wouldn't go crazy. You wouldn't see me tearing up in the streets. But at the same time, I do think you can give him both. You can give him the tragedy of death without actually executing him. And then you kind of get the best of both worlds. Though admittedly, you do get a little bit less. Because yeah, Ryomen Sukuna killed Yuta Okkotsu, but he's still alive in Gojo's body. Or he's still alive in his own body. Or he's in Rika, which is one. I mean, it is weird that Gege pointed out that Rika is currently an empty vessel that's meant for information storage, and we know soul information is a thing in JJK. Don't get me wrong; that's been established for a while now, all the way back in Shibuya. So like, the pieces are there. When I first saw that Rika theory, I thought they were crazy, but then like I read it, I was like, okay, maybe they're cooking a little bit. But overall, if I had to hazard a guess, Yuta Okkotsu likely has to go. Once again, for the stuff I mentioned at the start. Yuta and Yuji and Sukuna override Yuta. As much as you may love Yuta, as much as you want to slop off Yuta, as crazy and powerful and next level as Yuta is, it's still just not his story anymore. His story ended over 262.2 chapters ago, all the way back in JJK0. He's been a fantastic accessory piece. He's been a wonderful rook. He's been extremely potent and powerful, but ultimately he has a weakening step. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for tragedy. I'm all for sadness. I'm all for despair. I'm a JJK fan. You kind of get used to it if you want to like the manga. But with that being the case, I'd be okay with a little bit of a bittersweet end. A little twist on it. A little roundabout way where Yuta Okkotsu gets quote-unquote the best of both worlds. Either living in a body where he'll never be able to be himself again for all eternity, looking at a face that he stole for the sake of the greater good and now forced to be reduced to nothing but a weapon to maintain the balance of the Jujutsu world, or even worse, a creature, a monster, a beast, barely able to communicate and not having traditional flesh, forced to wander the world of Jujutsu as long as his flesh still exists. Or C, I mean, I kind of know why I'm going to end up happy in his body, so I guess I am more leaning towards Yuta does have to go. But that is what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave live fall. Like, live fall. You can do one word, you can do 2 words, but live fall in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have to have a Patreon down below, or you can support me for as low as $1 things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member to the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, and free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 Patreon and $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a I think that's 25 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to thank you to our $3 members, Zena, Greyhound, Astro, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, G Prosper, Red Wolf 4765, and Paris Arnold. I'd like to leave another big ol' thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $7 members, Autumn Mornings Lazo, Fine, and That Guy. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $10 members, Robbie Uchiha, Jay Warrior, and Akid's Void. And I'd like to give big, hefty, juicy thank yous to our $10 patrons, Panda Goat, Michael Williamson, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Idemo Kami. And I'd like to give the biggest, juiciest, meatiest, sloppiest, and heftiest thank you of them all to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.